This is an Ice Guys Patreon exclusive.
Welcome to another Ice Guys team season preview video as we roll along 32 teams in 32 days. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and we are talking Buffalo Sabres. And to help us talk Buffalo Sabres, it is DJ Mitchell, who you've seen on this show before in the past. Big Buffalo Sabres fan, big into fantasy hockey, player props, all that stuff as well. DJ, welcome in and ready to talk Buffalo Sabres. How are you?
I'm doing great. Other than being a Sabres fan, things couldn't be going better. The last time they made the playoffs, I was just getting my driver's license. This summer, I got married. So I think the drought is now lifted. I just had to get another major milestone, and I hope they can get back on track because it has been a while. I am in downtown Buffalo right now as we record, and the feeling is not great. But we'll get into all the nuances. We'll go over all of it, I'm sure.
We sure will. And the Buffalo Sabres, I mean, where do you begin? I guess that's the best way to sum it up here. But no, in all seriousness, look, we know this is the longest drought now in the NHL as far as not making the playoffs is concerned. And last year for the Sabres, 79 points, only the dismantling, built and rebuilding from scratch Boston Bruins finished with fewer points in the Atlantic Division than the Buffalo Sabres, and Philadelphia also finished below Buffalo with 76 points in the Eastern Conference. But when you look at Buffalo, the headline, I guess, transaction in the offseason was trading away J.J. Peterka, as I say, J.J. Peterka moving to the Utah Mammoth. And look, the guy expressed a desire not to stay, not wanting to stick around. And at least for a guy that's obviously gotten his share of ridicule and scorn from Buffalo Sabres fans, and a lot of it deserved and justified, but at least for Kevin Adams, the general manager, he got two NHL roster players back in return for J.J. Peterka from the Utah Mammoth in Michael Kesselring, defenseman, and Josh Doan from the Utah Mammoth. And like I said, they got a solid return for a guy that was obviously disenchanted and not wanting to be around with the Sabres anymore. And when you look at the Sabres up front, and again, it seems like we talk about this all year, every offseason when we preview the Buffalo Sabres, they did score enough goals last year to be a better hockey team than their record and points indicates. Because when you look at them offensively last year, they were 10th in goals per game at 3.23 goals per game. Like, they're up there with the Dallases and Torontos and Carolinas, Colorados, Columbus, Winnipeg, Washington, Tampa. They're right there with all those teams as far as offense is concerned. But again, the defensive end of things is where the struggles are. 3.5 goals per game allowed, just too much, bottom five in the league in that category. So again, defense is going to have to improve. No question about that. And a lot of times defense is not just technique and, forwards back checking, defensemen being in good position, not taking penalties, not giving the other team too many power play chances. A lot of it is just grit and compete. And a lot of times that's been missing from Buffalo. And even last year, a lot of times it's been missing from the Buffalo Sabres. And say no more than the incident that happened with Tage Thompson during the season, where he's getting mauled and everyone's just standing idle and watching it unfold and not really doing anything about it. Just those kind of things have been certainly a problem for the Buffalo Sabres. The grit quotient certainly has to go up. But when you look at the forward group, I've always said I don't mind this forward group. Tage Thompson, that's what sucks about last year for this team. Tage Thompson bounced back pretty solidly and had a pretty good year overall offensively, back in the 40s in goals last year for the Buffalo Sabres after he had a down season a couple of years ago, which was disappointing, but back to 44 goals and 72 points last year in 76 games for Buffalo. You got that out of him, and yet you didn't even get close really to making the playoffs. But, if you get that out of Tage again, you're going to have a chance. Ryan McLeod was one of the bright spots. He came over in the trade with Edmonton, and he had a really good season, his best season in the NHL so far, Ryan McLeod. And him in that second-line center spot, I like it. You got the vet Jason Zucker, the other vet Alex Tuch. You're going to get them giving an honest effort most nights. I'm a big fan of Zach Benson. Again, there's still lots of room to grow for him, but I see work ethic. I see compete. I see going to the tough areas of the ice to try to score goals out of Zach Benson. So I've got, high expectations for him to continue to grow and develop for this team. But again, DJ and I were talking about this just before we hit the record here on this video. Can we get a healthy Josh Norris this season for the Buffalo Sabres? This is a great player when he's healthy. He can be one of a really good top-line center in this league. But again, a guy that has not been able to really get to that 70, 80 games played at any sort of consistent level. And now back-to-back seasons where his season's been cut short due to injury, coming off, a soft tissue injury that he suffered last year. But 50 games with Ottawa 2 years ago, 56 games between the Senators and Sabres last year, keeping him to just 21 goals, 35 points in those games. But again, the injuries have really marred what could be a great career for Josh Norris. So is he able to stay healthy is a big question here for Buffalo entering this season. Their bottom six, I think we saw flashes, glimpses out of Yuri Kulik for the Buffalo Sabres last year. And we'll see how he fits. They'll probably drop him a little bit down now as far as the center ice position is concerned. Jack Quinn, great scorer, but very streaky. So we'll see if he can put a little more consistency together. Josh Doan will fit nicely in the bottom six. You got some big bodies and physicality from the likes of Greenway and Beck Malenstein. So, I don't mind their forward group. I really don't. I think you could do a lot worse than what Buffalo's got. The blue line's the interesting thing. Rasmus Dahlin, Matthias Samuelsson, another guy that's had some injury issues. I think Kesselring will fit nicely. And when I know DJ, when he talks about the Sabres, he'll talk about how much he likes Kesselring for sure. They got Bo Byram re-signed. Connor Timmins added for some depth as well on that blue line. But it's, to me, Owen Power's the one that stands out as what's going to take this blue line and improve it. Owen Power's got to start showing why he was drafted number 1 overall by the Sabres years ago. Because to me, he's too soft in front of the net. It's too easy, to score goals when he's trying to defend there. He's got to get harder. He's got to be tougher. He's got to be playing way more physical for a guy of his frame than he does. And I find even the obvious strengths of his game entering the NHL, just starting the breakout, starting the rush, and lugging the puck up the ice. We've seen some of those great, things that he can provide sort of not be so good, the last year or so. So Owen Power has got to start playing to the level of his hockey cards, I guess you could say, coming out of college. If he does, that's going to certainly go a long way for the Sabres. If he struggles again, then this blue line is probably going to have a tougher chance to really show those improvements. And it's a crowded crease. You've got UPL, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, picked a pack of pickle peppers. He's still there with the Buffalo Sabres, obviously. Devin Levi, the 2 young guys, and you're hoping you're going to take that mantle as the number 1 goalie. And you bring in Alex Lyon, obviously in the offseason, as kind of a mentor. And I like the attitude of Alex Lyon. He's not shying away from this, saying, I realize that, I'm kind of the veteran guy now in this goaltending room, but I'm okay with just trying to help these 2 guys out, UPL and Devin Levi, to get better. And I'll just be ready when I'm called upon. And it'll be interesting to see how Lindy Ruff delineates his goaltending this season when you got 3 guys that are pretty much all capable of at least making a run at being, the guy that's going to start the most amount of games this year for the Buffalo Sabres. You know what? Last year, guys, I said it going into the year, I'm sick and fucking tired of year in and year out on these previews saying the Buffalo Sabres are finally going to improve and this is their year. They're finally going to make the playoffs. Before last year's, I finally said I'm not doing it. I said this is either fade Buffalo until proven otherwise. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I finally looked smart for a change, at the beginning of last season, saying fade Buffalo until proven otherwise. I'm done here saying they're going to be better and make the playoffs. Sure enough, it was another disappointing season. It's a show me sport right now when it comes to the Buffalo Sabres. Show me you're ready to take a step. Until then, I've got my doubts and I've got my pessimism when it comes to the Buffalo Sabres here in 2025, 2026. Alex, your thoughts on the Buffalo Sabres?
Yeah, it just feels like we say the same old thing year in, year out whenever we talk about the Buffalo Sabres heading into a season. Can they end the drought? Do they have what it takes? Is this the right blend of a coaching staff? Is it the right blend of veterans and youngsters to move forward as a franchise? And it just always seems like there's something stagnant one way or the other. Either it's the coach staff's not that great, or maybe they need to make a move to GM, or their core is not stable enough, or they don't have the goaltending. It just always seems to be where it's like a puzzle where you push one piece and another piece pops out. And I don't know what it's going to take for Buffalo to just get everything lined up to where they are a playoff team and a viable contender at that. Now, if you're someone who believes they're going to break the streak this year and get into the postseason, and we talked about this on a preview show earlier, you can bet this at FanDuel. What round do they end up getting eliminated in? I think if they get into the playoffs, it would be such a grand just gesture because you've finally broken this long streak and the misery is over. They probably crumble in that first round series. So you can get a 5-1. That might be worth betting more than, say, the plus 180, plus 200 you may see lurking around for them to get into the playoffs. That's something to look at from a betting standpoint. But just from an overall just kind of standpoint, everybody else seems to keep getting better in the Atlantic, right? Like, Tampa Bay, hasn't faded like we expected. Florida's the king of kings at this point. Toronto's still hanging around. Detroit's getting better. Ottawa got better. We saw them finally make it into the playoffs. So where does Montreal looks fantastic? Where does the progress even get Buffalo, even if they are say 8-9 points better than they were last year? That still might leave them in last place in the Atlantic because everybody else has gotten better. I just don't see where the progress has gotten for them to leapfrog anybody in their division, let alone that log jammed up in Eastern Conference. It just seems to be another stagnant year up there in Western Europe.
Yeah, and you know what the problem is, and DJ, I'll get to you just in a sec, but one last thing I'll say is, doesn't it feel too like those other teams that we've talked about, Buffalo all these years battling with Ottawa and Montreal and Detroit, doesn't it feel like all those teams have passed them by now? Ottawa's further along in their ascension. Montreal's further along in their ascension. I'm not so sure about Detroit, but certainly Ottawa and Montreal are further along in their ascension as a franchise right now than the Buffalo Sabres, and it kind of feels like they're still being left behind. All right, DJ, floor is yours. They're your team. What do you think?
No, I think everything you're saying is so true and accurate. It's hard to really, I can't disagree at all. I'm not going to sit here and say, actually, you guys are wrong for any reason. What's frustrating about it is we already hinted at it, but this team, most people will say got worse. I would argue, I think they're a little bit better. Most teams got better. It's hard to go through an offseason, other than Chicago, I hate to say it, and feel like you really didn't get better. And every team's going to feel like they got better. And the only way the Sabres actually got that huge kick in the right direction is if a bunch of players that have not stayed healthy stay healthy. Josh Norris being the biggest example. This is a guy that had 35 goals in 65 games. It looked like he was on the ascension to superstardom before the shoulder, turned into a fine powder. Now, last year, it's an oblique. Well, can he stay healthy or not? I mean, if he can't stay healthy, we just wasted Dylan Cousins on nothing. I'm a huge fan of Josh Norris. I'm a huge fan of drafting him in fantasy this year because that's the kind of guy to bet on high. But you need him to be the JJ Peterka power play replacement. Now, again, you've already mentioned this team could score. They could score on the power play. I mean, their power play numbers were abysmal. You would think, how is that possible with Tage Thompson, Rasmus Dahlin, Alex Tuch down low, and career year Jason Zucker at 30 whatever. I really think Peterka was the weak link on that unit, and I do think that Josh Norris could replace him. I mean, we've seen countless players this offseason feel like they could be on the way out, and only JJ Peterka seems to be the one that went. You got to have two dance partners willing to go to the dance floor and make it happen. And I think the Sabres actually saw him as somewhat expendable and actually sold high on a player that I loved, I thought had a lot of skill, and maybe was going to be the best player in this deal, no matter what, but got two good pieces back. They did get tougher, though. Peterka was not at all a benefit defensively. In any metric you could possibly find, you could not convince me he added any value in the defensive game, unlike Josh Doan, who I think will add a lot of grit on that third line and a much higher scoring capacity than they had previous years. It was Ryan McLeod or absolutely nothing in the bottom six that could score. I think Doan's going to add a nice element there. If Jack Quinn can stay healthy, I'm incredibly high on Yuri Kulik. I know you mentioned him being down the lineup. I think he is the quote unquote number one center, even though it's really Tage Thompson. Anyone, I think even if you say, oh no, Tage Thompson's on the right wing, you can say that all you want. He's the first line center. Kulik and him kind of trade the position, and Kulik can win draws, I believe, a little bit better than him, but that's all there is for it. And again, like, you can make the argument, you can make the case, you can make everything you want to say. You can go all the way down and you can say this team is a playoff team. And I think they have on paper a top 5 defensive core, 3 goalies that can win. We all forget Alex Lyon is the goalie that led the Florida Panthers to the playoffs 2 years ago when they went on that, 3 years ago now, when they went on that cup run and lost to Vegas. I mean, that was Alex Lyon that just carried that team back. Bobrovsky looked like the worst contract in hockey at the time. I'm not saying he's going to do it again, but you can create the story pretty easily. You can create the story that UPL is actually a really good goalie, that Devin Levi is going to reach his potential we all thought he had. End of the day, is anyone going to do that? Is anyone actually going to put their money on the Buffalo Sabres? Is anyone going to actually go to bat for them? This is an organization of losers, owned by losers and run by losers that say they're going to push the chips in the table and put 80% in every year. And it feeds into the culture. Why don't these guys grind in front of the net? Well, no one grinds on this team. No one grinds in any capacity. They have the worst general manager. I don't think anyone could argue that. Every fan voted them to be the worst run franchise. No one could argue
for every
that.
2 good things he does about 15 things that fucks things up. Yeah.
I just, you sit there at the end of the day and you say, this is a team that has made the playoffs again in what, like I said, since I was learning to drive. Well, I'm married now. Why do they continue to have 7-8 million in cap space every year? You're not all in. You're not an organization that's all in. Why is your roof falling inwards in the arena? Because you're not all in. Why do you have the worst facilities? Because you're not all in. You can say you're all in, but the players know you're not. And it feeds into the organization. It feeds into the culture. It feeds into that mentality that they're going to go out there and they're going to kick someone's ass. I mean, you are selling a team to players that is in Buffalo. I love the city more than anybody. You ever come down to Buffalo, send me a message. I'll send you 40 restaurants and I'll tell you all about how great it is. Guess what? Players want to go to New York City. They don't want to come to Buffalo. They want to go to Los Angeles. You got to create an organization that is the toughest to play against. That's how it always has been. It cannot be, oh, we don't have palm trees and, oh, we have these tax problems.
That's the biggest bunch of nonsense I've ever heard.
You can't be a victim in this city and win. You can't do it. You have to be an alpha. You have to say, we don't fucking care. Sorry if the swearing's not okay. Hope it is.
No, it's fine.
We're going to go and make the best possible, hardest to play team. Teams need to come into Buffalo and leave miserable. And it has to be that way. You can't win another way in this city. And it's the sad reality of this franchise that they are the best team and they find ways to lose. They snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And it's been that way forever. So yeah, the roster looks good. Everything should be good. They're going to suck. And I'm just going to be sad again. And I'm going to be at the KeyBank Center right down the road, just sitting there like this. It's like, how? Every year, how?
Do you feel that maybe things need to change? You mentioned about the ownership. Do you think that if the Pagulas, because they're so focused on the Bills, that if someone else would come in and buy them and be as focused on the Sabres as the Pagulas are with the Bills, that could really be the thing that changes everything else around?
I think there's 2 parts to this question that are interesting. One is, I think the perception outside of Buffalo is that the Pagulas are only focused on the Bills. When Terry Pegula is in that war room until the 7th round of every draft for hockey, he is a hockey guy. He bought the Penn State program. I mean, the Penn State hockey program does not exist without Terry Pegula. It's Terry Pegula Sports Arena. He's a hockey guy through and through. I think that's part of the problem more than anything is that he wants his fingerprints on this team and he doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, he does not know, and he's taken very bad advice and hired very bad people. The problem with Kevin Adams isn't that he's a true idiot. He is a yes guy. He has worked his way up by doing what Terry Pegula wants him to do. And unfortunately, Terry Pegula doesn't know hockey like he thinks he does. Now, the other problem is that I think Terry Pegula would be willing to sell the Sabres, but nobody's going to buy them for the price they're worth and keep them in Buffalo. And that isn't going to happen. The NHL is not going to let this area surrounding Buffalo, this Canadian, I mean, I pass the border almost every day. It's right there. The amount of people from St. Catharines that come down, they're not letting this market lose the team. And no one's going to give the money this franchise is worth and keep him in Buffalo. He's in a rock and a hard place. I don't feel bad for him. I mean, he's still a billionaire at the end of the day. But I mean, it is just this perfect encapsulation of an organization that cannot claw its way out of the problem. That's how I feel about it. So I do think that you're right by saying the ownership is a major issue. I just think it's different than people think.
Right. Okay.
2 things. First, number one, that was a great question because I was going to go by Alex. I was going to go there with the Pegula question. How is it that he's running the Buffalo Sabres as one of the great franchises, most successful franchises right now in the NFL, and the Buffalo Sabres are a shit show? And I think, DJ, you answered it very well. Terry loves hockey. Terry is beyond passionate about hockey. There's no question. And he's so passionate about hockey, he thinks he knows everything there is to know about hockey. And so he is going to plant himself, as you said, in the war room with the front office, with the GMs and all the executives, and try to tell them what they should be doing when it comes to the Buffalo Sabres.
He's a big fan who bought a hockey team, essentially.
Yeah. And I watch hockey all the time. This is the sport I love the most. I know what I'm doing. I know I can give good advice to people, and I'm going to give that advice. And I'm going to tell them I think this is what we should be doing. Whereas with football, while he obviously wants the Bills to do well, he doesn't have quite that same passion for football as a sport that he does for hockey.
So
and
he has
says,
people
and I don't
in front.
think I know it as well.
Yeah.
So I will give full autonomy to make decisions for the Buffalo Bills to the people that are football people who know what they're doing. The GM, Brandon Beane, who knows what he's doing, who's going to make good decisions with the football roster. And so because he says, wait a minute, football's not my thing, hockey is, I'll let those people do it. Well, no, just because you love hockey doesn't mean you should be making all the decisions. We got to get this guy. We got to sign this guy. This is what we should be doing here. I think that's where we're at, DJ, with Terry Pegula right now. I think, at least from what I've read and what you've just said, that's the thing. He loves hockey so much, he thinks he knows it, and he's got to be involved in every decision. Whereas with football, he's hands off. He lets Brandon Beane and his group of executives make all the moves, and that's why the Bills are thriving, and that's why the Sabres are languishing.
And maybe it'll take something. Maybe it'll take, DJ, people like you, people who do podcasts and shows and talk about the Sabres and are within the community, to get in the ear of a Ryan Miller, get in the ear of some of those old former Sabres, and maybe push this way up and say, hey, somebody sit down with him and say, listen, you're not getting this done. Get in the people who can get this done, and before it's too late, before the NHL has to jump in and then they threaten to move the franchise. You don't want it to ever get to that point. Yeah. But at some point, it's gotten so dreadful for all of us on the outside. Like you said, for all of us on the outside, we're looking at it like, what the fuck's going on? Like, it just seems like Buffalo, and we know it's not the fan base, it's not the community. It's not one of those situations like you've seen other franchises fail in the past. It's incompetence up top, and something has to be done. If he's not going to make the change, then somebody has to get in his ear to help him make the change.
Yeah,
yep, I agree with that.
I couldn't agree more. And like the amount of people I interact with on a daily basis that just still play hockey, the beer leagues in Buffalo, the rinks in Buffalo, the amount of hockey people there are. I know it's now all Buffalo Bills. Everyone's going to tell you no one cared about the Bills. It was always the Sabres growing up. I mean, the Bills finally came back, and I'm happy. I'm happy for the people, have fun, go to the Bills games, get drunk.
Bills Mafia is going nuts. Yeah, of course.
Like, I'm happy for it, but I mean, to me, I care about the Sabres so much more. But it's
you would trade all that Bills nonsense for anything successful.
Oh my God, just a single playoff game at this point. And I think the fans, like a lot of fans, won't say it out loud, but they would. I mean, it's a totally different world when this team is competitive. Even in the year where they almost made the playoffs, I mean, it felt like the electricity around that arena was palpable. I mean, every person cares and knows the game and loves it so much. It's as close as a Canadian market as you could possibly get. Like I said, a lot of the fans are Canadian, so they have hockey in their DNA. And I mean, I could go on and on about how frustrated this organization makes me, but one point that you hit on that I wanted to mention is, like, why don't some of these former players step up and say something? Well, they had Pat LaFontaine in there and they booted his ass. They had Michael Pekka in there and they booted him. Now he's on the Rangers. Yeah. Why did they boot them? Because they aren't yes guys. They don't just take Terry Pegula and say, yes, sir, you're so wealthy and wise, we will do what you say. Yeah. They didn't. Pat LaFontaine's gone, never to come back. He will never step foot in this organization again. We ruined one of our biggest icons from being a part of the organization, in my opinion. Ryan Miller is around, but I don't think he wants to be involved. Thomas Vanek, former player, goes to the Shark. Mike Greer is on the Sharks. A lot of these guys know
that's true. They've ostracized so many former Sabres.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. Wow.
So I think that's
it was bad with a lot of the alumni, but my good, Pat LaFontaine is a fucking crying shame. Because
I mean,
going back to my love of Rick Jeanneret, the late great RJ, rest in peace. One of the all-time iconic. He always had a goal call attached to various players, but LaFontaine. I mean, that's iconic. That's going to be in the annals of all-time great calls for when a particular player scores a goal.
Yeah,
and now the guy doesn't even want any part of the organization. That's sad. That's sad.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
That's sounding a lot like late '90s Hawks like Wirtz era Hawks, where just everything's gone wrong, and like you said, and then you said there's issues with the facilities too. That's not good either. See that, and that's the problems. Those are the things you have to take care of above all else, because those are the things where the legal start getting involved. You know.
I know.
So.
And look at the new Bill Stadium coming in. I mean, it's the greatest state of the art stadium and all this stuff. And then I mean, literally look it up. Like just the other day, it was leaking. The roof was leaking, and a big piece of it just fell in on KeyBank Center. Like this is not. I'm not exaggerating. That's exactly what happened like 2 weeks ago. I mean, it's
slightly off topic. Slightly off topic. Why is it the Bills not build a dome?
I mean, you know, I think it's stupid. I think they should have built a dome.
Yeah.
I'm not going to defend the decision, but
we've all watched the tapes of fans coming in and shoveling about 80 inches of snow out of the place before a game starts. Like, you think you could have just eliminated that with the roof?
At the very least,
It's
very
it's supposed to be built in this specific way that the wind is supposed to like go a direction to not allow it's supposed to be some crazy technological aerodynamic thing. I'm sure snow will still get in, but it's supposed to be built like some state-of-the-art soccer stadium, and like Terry Pegula talking about it on the HBO series. It's supposed to be this really I mean, the thing as well about Buffalo that people don't understand. I mean, I know Ian probably knows this well. Alex, you're not too far away, but like people think like Buffalo is like, here's Niagara Falls, and then here's the city, and then here's the Bill Stadium. But like Niagara Falls is like way up here, and the Bill Stadium's way down here, and the city of Buffalo is like way over here. And it's like the south of the Lake Erie where all the snow really piles in. My biggest thing was you don't need to keep it in Orchard Park. I know the hardcore Bills fans will have fallen out of their chairs, gasping for air right now as I said that. But like, you could have gone north of the city and gotten feet less of snow a year. Not an exaggeration. Like sometimes these colossal snowstorms
lake
that
effect
hit Orchard Park,
right.
I'll walk outside and I'm like, oh, I got 3 inches, and Orchard Park gets 2 feet. I mean, it's an unbelievable difference too. It's but again, I mean, Terry Pegula is an idiot that doesn't know what he's doing with anything. So why would he have put it in the right spot? I mean, why would he have done anything logical? So not defense. I just know that like it's supposed to be this amazing air system. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And go Bills for the Bills fans out there.
And one more question too, and kind of just Buffalo centric and talking about with Bills and Sabres. You said, you would kind of really trade in everything Bills for the Sabres to be successful. Is there more of a divide in the city where, as opposed to say a Pittsburgh, where everybody it's Steelers season until it's Penguin season until it's Pirate season? Is there more of a split, or is everybody kind of all? I mean, I'm sure that people who are all together, but no.
I grew up a Cleveland.
Like, there's some people who are Bills fans who couldn't care about. Yeah. Okay.
Like my dad's a huge Browns fan, so I grew up going to Browns games. I mean, I still root for the Browns, I guess. I kind of root for the Bills, just as much at this point. Like, again, I think when you're a Sabres fan and a Browns fan, it's so dire that you just can't actually do that to yourself every single season. I mean, if you ask me who do I want to win the Super Bowl, I'd say the Browns. But I'm not going to say that this year. I mean, they should be the worst team in the NFL. I believe they will be. But personally, I mean, argue about the Saints or the Browns or whatever. It's pretty freaking bad out there. So I mean, this year I'll probably watch, I normally by, 5 o'clock, I'm turning on whatever hockey game's on regardless. Like, I just have cared less and less about the NFL as I feel like the products continue to get worse and the league has continued to nickel and dime the fans to death. You can't go to a game without spending $300. You can't watch it on TV anymore without it being an absolute nightmare. It's only on Peacock now. Oh, that's great. I mean, probably in the United States problem, but it's just like I just continue to get so frustrated with the sport that I'm just like, I don't care. I mean, it's truly to me sitting here on a streaming platform watching the same commercial 5,000 times because now it's it's the same commercials over and over on a loop. I lose my mind. I can't do it.
Yep,
we know. I just like
you get it too in Canada. It's just Canadian commercials, the same bullshit.
Yeah.
You see,
and that's every sport is like that too. So
it is every sport. I just think that the product of hockey is actually good. First off, despite the worst, commissioner in all of sports, it's actually the best product. Well, football, I know people don't really like Roger Goodell. I think he's done an amazing job at growing the sport comparatively to Gary Bettman. And
comparatively,
but they care way too much about the bottom line every year instead of helping the fans in any capacity. And I just think it's gotten to a point where I'm kind of not boycotting, but I'd rather just make fun of the NFL fans for their nonsense.
Right.
No doubt. Before we wrap up, look, we're at that time of year where everyone misses the Ice Guys show 7 days a week during the NHL season, and especially the Bargain Bin Special of the Night segment, which has been such a huge success now that we've done it for 2 seasons. And the amount of and what it's always a +3. Just to remind everybody, the Bargain Bin Special of the Night is our favorite +300 or better player prop on the board for that given night. And it's amazing how many of these we've hit the last 2 years. And a lot of it has been that moving up the lineup, player going to the top line, player going to the first power play unit, or getting more ice time. And there's never an adjustment in the player prop pricing for this. Never. And it's been things we've capitalized on for the last couple of years. And I know with Buffalo, we've had a few. Ryan McLeod comes to mind. How many Ryan McLeod goal props did we end up hitting last year on those +300 or better prices when he would find the back of the net? So I will ask DJ before we wrap it up, just an overall, who do you think from a bargain bin perspective this year? +300 goal props or better, over 1.5 points at those big plus prices. What player do you think is going to hold bargain bin special type of value for the Sabres this year?
I'll wrap with a few bets. Let me give you a few bets, okay? Now I'm gonna say if you listen to this show and you the whole time are just shaking your damn head, you said these guys are stupid, the Sabres are great, everything's perfect. The number one bet last year for me, I said, for any Sabres fans out there, if you are betting on this team to win, the NHL and the media, whoever votes on it, whatever, they will bend over backwards to give Lindy Ruff Coach of the Year. If they make the playoffs and have any modicum of success in the playoffs, and it's going to be like 25-1, and because the Sabres suck, right? But if you are actually betting on the Sabres to make the playoffs and stuff, I think you're doing a disservice by not throwing at least a quarter of a unit on Lindy Ruff, because that is the exact lifelong hockey guy that they would love to reward as he lifts a team that everyone thinks sucks back into the playoffs. I mean, just the perfect story.
It's usually the criteria to win, Jack Adams. Yeah,
that's the criteria, right? I mean, that's exactly how it's won. I think my favorite way of doing any offseason stuff is best ball. I mean, it's growing so much in the NFL, and I think drafting best ball for football is a lot of fun, but it's also a hockey product. There's 25,000 in the first place on Underdog. You can draft 150 teams like with me if you'd like. I think Josh Norris in fantasy is just an unbelievably good bet. Like that is not a bargain bin guy. If he does get hot, he is going to be, plus 180, plus 220 their range for his goal, because he's such a great goal scorer. Yep. But that's exactly why you bet on him in fantasy. Right now, he's going undrafted sometimes in Underdog, and we know the upside. We know the shooting ability, and he's a perfect replacement for J.J. Peterka on that top power play with his shooting ability to go off Tage Thompson on the left side. So those are
power play point props for Mr. Norris if he stays healthy.
Norris, I completely agree. I think that it's going to flow through him and not Power. I mean, Dahlin, and Tage Thompson for the puck flow to, potentially set up guys like Tuck and Zucker down low. I think for the guy that I'm most willing to bet on for points that maybe isn't getting considered, I think it's probably Zach Benson. I think he's very quietly been, I hate to.
Benson is someone I would go. I would say, hey, Benson, score me another goal. Him for bargain bin special.
I could find the exact tweet, but Cliffy, I'm not sure if anyone follows him, Michael Clifford, he was posting about just how close the numbers were at 5-on-5 for Benson and Connor Bedard. Like pretty freaking the same, except Benson's been incredibly good defensively. I do think Bedard is going to take hopefully a massive step forward this year, but continue to grow at a much higher clip and hopefully get better talent. But I think Zach Benson is criminally underrated from a point perspective. So I think that's the bet. And then goal scoring wise, if you're just trying to bet a goal scorer, early in the season, I give you Josh Norris, and then later on in the season, I think Yuri Kulik will take another step forward in that department. He was really
great one too. We cashed a few plus 400.
Yeah, he did.
With Kulik when he got to the top line late in the year.
I think he'll stick there. I mean, him and Tage looked awesome together. So that's kind of a few different ways of betting on the Sabres in general. And then the last note is if Kesselring ever, Dahlin ever goes down, God forbid, and Kesselring steps up to a bigger role. This guy had the second hardest shot of the year last year. He can absolutely wire it from the point. If you're ever trying to get crazy on a guy, I mean, this is a DFS darling as far as a minimum salary, lower tier defenseman to bet on DraftKings FanDuel for that daily fantasy products. When he got promoted with no jersey, just because of that cannon of a shot. So not saying every night, but in the right circumstance, a nice little sprinkle, he will shoot. He definitely does not mind shooting.
I love a good defenseman goal scoring prop. So
Yes.
yeah, I'll be
Yeah,
looking for that.
Definitely. You certainly
Yeah.
were looking more toward the D-men as far as
Yep.
goal score props in that bargain bin segment
Mhm.
last year. So great advice, great insight,
Yeah.
great stuff. DJ, we
Yeah.
thank you very much for
Yeah,
joining us
absolutely.
here for this Buffalo Sabres team preview. And let's just see what happens. Is it going to be the same old song and dance, or do the
Yeah.
Buffalo Sabres actually
What's
show?
the worst they could do to me? What's the worst they could do to me now?
I've already
hardened.
abused you enough.
You've seen it all. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. No, awesome stuff with DJ Mitchell. We thank you for joining us. Alex B. Smith for DJ Mitchell. I'm Ian Cameron. This has been your Ice Guys Buffalo Sabres NHL team season preview video as 32 teams in 32 days rolls along courtesy of the Ice Guys.